asked of me is why I, Bobby Joe Champion, did not file a lawsuit. And I want you to know I do not have the standing to be able to file the lawsuit. That is for our chief executive officers with the Attorney General's office by which to do that. You want to speak anything about that, Karen?
Okay, I think that
We need some people.
Somebody, can
I'm
y'all
not sure yet about the physical
Hey,
parameters.
we're asking everyone to go on mute, please.
Can you remove that person?
Yeah, remote them.
We are working on it. Thank you. You all can keep. Thank you, Karen. Senator, you have to unmute again. Sorry, the way our system, when we mute everybody, it muted you. So please just unmute.
Oh,
Thank
I was
you.
asking Roxanne if you have any more questions because I saw that you had a couple questions in the chat and I wanted to make sure that you.
The question, Senator.
All right, Andrew.
One of the things that's really been bothering me, I've seen conflicting information about this. What are the requirements and a kidnapping? How is that? How should we handle that?
All right, so I think that might be a question for Commissioner Barnett, but if the AG's office has an answer to that, or should we defer that to Commissioner Barnett? Elizabeth.
Yep, we've got Elizabeth and then Joseph afterwards.
Okay.
Hi.
Yep. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm just curious, and I'm sorry if I missed this somewhere along. Do we do if they stop us and ask us for information?
So this is what I'm going to do, Elizabeth. We're going to have ACLU that is going to speak shortly, and if you hold that question, we'll make sure that that question gets answered. Okay.
Okay. I just.
All right, we're going to Joseph.
Yeah, thank you. I won't waste time because your previous questioner just asked the same question because I have a real ID which is supposed to meet federal standards, and from my understanding from Virginia, the ICE agents wouldn't accept.
All right, Karen, do you have a response to that, or should we leave that for the ACLU?
I think that's a good ACLU question.
All right. Joseph, we have certainly asked both questions with ACLU, and as well as if Commissioner Barnett might have an answer to that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Hello. How you guys doing today? I got a couple of concerns. One, I'm gonna start with is the purpose of them entertaining the city, which is more of and it seems like he's living on his word. He's standing on his word. And second off is that he entered this year with an executive order labeling fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. So now I'm looking and I'm watching deployed agents to the state of Minnesota weapon of mass destruction um, label that he's given this drug now. I'm trying to understand how can we redirect some of their energy to actually face what he's labeled.
Well, let me just say that that's a really good question, and I'll take an attempt. And laws, and so we have to continue to use the arm of the judiciary, and sometimes they don't always follow that, but we got to stay constant in trying to push that energy back in a different way. And what I'll do, Ambi, if there's someone else that wants to weigh.
It's kind of our own executive order for Minnesota to kind of show some direction to the president and his officers how to conduct Minnesota and actually handle some business that is necessary. So I got a couple of orders I wrote up I would like to share with you guys.
Yeah, please feel free. We said this at the top, and I think we're. I'm going to go to Constant now. Constant.
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to take 1 minute, just since we're all here together, to let y'all know that yesterday I was threatened inside of my own front yard with obstruction and arrest by an ICE agent for blowing. Hoping not, but this is happening. And so I wanted to make sure that y'all know that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Constant, what we want to say to you, we're sorry that you experienced that, but that seems to be things that we're all experiencing and why we're all so unsettled. And we're unsettled because people are trapped. And talk about other things that we are thinking about in real time. Thank you for that. And again, I'm sorry that you experienced that. All right. KB, do you have a question?
Senator, Yep, Senator Champion KB asked me to ask his question because his voice, but I wanted him to raise his hand to be in queue. His question is, do we have That's his two questions.
All right, so the small business question is one that we'll reserve. And I'm gonna ask Paul. Paul, is the first question something that we should wait for you to be able to answer as you talk about know your rights?
I mean, it's a do it, but they do not have the right to do it, if that makes sense. They don't have to, they can't force you to do it.
All right, all right. So there we have. Any other questions of Karen from the Attorney General's office before we go to our next presenter? A former Chief Justice, a Chief Judge. And so, Commissioner Barnett, can you tell us what's going on from the city's perspective, especially as it pertains to MPD, their policy around supporting ICE or not?
Is what you've heard from the Attorney General's office is the legal process in trying to make sure that, you know, we are joined in lawsuits and preventing a lot of this lawlessness that's going on. So one big bucket is what can we do legally? Is to make sure people are able to have the information that is accurate. And then the third big bucket for us, it comes to community safety and making sure that all of our departments, when you think of fire, to answer the question, Senator Champion, about MPD specifically, I think you all know that we have something called a separation ordinance. That ordinance doesn't allow any employees, including MPD, there. And Senator Champion, anything else you want me to talk about, I will go in detail.
Can you also underscore that discussion around MPD's ability to arrest an ICE agent? And it's my understanding that it depends on what
warrant for a law enforcement officer. Let's say there was a warrant for a St. Paul officer. Law enforcement would work together to make sure that that person was arrested and taken into custody in a very safe way. They really would coordinate that very well. This the, I would say, average person to distinguish what is operating within their lawful duty versus not their lawful duty. So it puts our MPD officers in a tough spot, one in which we would not like Fourth Amendment, 10th Amendment, racial profiling, and other things. But this does put our officers, in a very tough position, and where they're really trying to do the duties that they've been.
If you could speak to that question and that response, and then also the question as to whether a person detained, if they have a right to their private attorney and how that works. Paul.
All right, and just to preface this, I'm not an attorney. I just do a lot of talking about this and working with the attorney. Or not for following the law. So that is something that they've been breaking, obviously. And with the temporary restraining order that our lawsuit just got yesterday evening, they've been put on notice that that is unconstitutional and unlawful, that they're arresting people for both to the AG and to us so that we can continue this legal action and eventually wear them down.
All right, and so I think Michelle may have a question, so we can ask Michelle for her question, and then we'll get that answer before we go to Dr. Alexis Mann.
With that being said, what is the accountability then if they are breaking, what has been passed at the city?
Can I see you on that?
At the city area where they are not supposed to be on city land. Thank you.
Are driving into some of our city parking lots, we're making sure that we are noting that and keeping a record of it. They are being asked to leave once we're notified that they're there. They have not been allowed into any of our buildings.
I apologize. I was responding to a question in the chat. Could you say it again really quickly? The second
Um,
part?
let's see. I think the second part was around, at least someone put in the chat, if an order is broken, right? Because you talk about
chances are, again, I can't say this definitively, but if Chicago, LA, Portland are any indicator where it's been a fairly similar pattern just with the National Guard, they're gonna probably break it. We're gonna have them back in court. We're probably gonna break it again with increasingly narrow we have an answer for why they're continuing to break things, which, in turn makes the court be like, all right, well, you get to do even less now. So if that makes sense.
And I think there was a question earlier, if it wasn't asked about if someone is detained, their immigration law is civil, and so usually you are supposed to be able to have right to your private attorney. But unfortunately, sometimes people are not allowed to call their attorneys right away. I know the work that I've been doing with some of the immigration attorneys. When we hear about a family, loved one that has been taken, we
Good morning, everyone. Sorry about the delay there.
no problem. Go ahead.
Missile, and so I'm just wondering what guidance is being shared for school leaders dealing with those issues. And then also, there was a parent that was arrested at a bus stop, and there's children being separated from their parents as a result of the ICE actions. And so I'm just curious about what guidance is being shared.
Schools, including Camden, North High School, some of the other schools, right? And the caller was asking if there's been any information shared with school leaders in order for them to know what their rights are and what sort of steps that they should take in order to try to protect.
They can't just waltz in there and do whatever they want. So it is incumbent upon the staff of the school to be the ones to assert, hey, you need to speak with the office, and you need a warrant if you're going to be in our school space. If it's outside of the school and like the bus pickup line,
as many districts and as many people as possible in order for them to get the training and have that understanding as to what their legal rights are, in hopes that they will execute that and be prepared if and when ICE comes to their doorstep. All right. My
There was a park police officer maybe 20 feet away from that park. When confronted by the community, the park police officer said, I didn't know they were ICE. And he was then instructed that, hey, they are ICE. And per policy, they're not allowed to stage on public property, and that park officer said he didn't know what the policy was. We went down at a park is reasonably staging. The pretext we get reading between the lines is Minneapolis police, park police have no appetite to actually enforce this, and the officer we spoke to also relayed they're in a tough position because even if they can confront ICE, ICE can tell them your officers are asking ICE to remove themselves from public property? And their responses is my number one question. My number two question is it implores city council as well as representatives is they are violating the law. You need to start thinking outside the box in terms of ways to better support the community.
Yes, we are tracking any interaction that our officers are having with ICE. We are continuing to track when they're on the property. I totally understand the frustration with the tax.
The second part of the question is whether you guys have set up a pretty good surveillance cameras across the city, and whether uh, that tool can be used to notify neighborhoods when ICE is present in their communities. I believe that's what was asked. And Dr. Mann, did
and cameras, could that be used to help the community give an early warning when ICE is in their neighborhoods?
go ahead. That's the question. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Commissioner. That's the
Sure,
question.
thank you. Just a little bit about the vehicles that they have. And I think most of you've talked about the changing of random license plate. You probably know right away that's Minneapolis MPD. The federal agents are, from my understanding, some of them are rental cars that they have. They're not necessarily associated specifically with the saying so, and we don't have cameras in every nook and cranny of the city of Minneapolis. We do have a fair amount of cameras that we're able to tap into. They're not necessarily MPD cameras. They're business cameras in which those businesses have allowed us way for you. Normally, before this surge in December, the way that we operated with any law enforcement agency that wasn't NPD is that they would, as a courtesy, contact the only complaint that I've had a lot of times is they didn't always tell us when they left, right? So we would have that courtesy to know that whether St. Paul or another agency was in the city of Minneapolis doing some type of surveillance. We have information from them that they're going to a particular area. We're knowing a lot of times because our citizens are calling 911.
I see that we got three more, and I want to make sure that your questions are for Commissioner Barnett, because then we'll go to
Hello. I'm not sure exactly who this question is for, but I was wondering, have you guys came up with like a contingency plan so that we're not, we're more proactive versus reactive in these type of scenarios?
February 17th, there will be a number of proposals that we're going to put forward, and we can certainly talk about those later, like, make it legal for law enforcement like ICE to wear masks, or for there to be a private right of action if someone's constitutional right, whether they're first or
be trying to do some backstop things once we get into session. I think for now, any plans, unfortunately, really do rely on the community working together. I know there's a number of groups already forming that are working together to help provide information, supplies.
I saw from Roxanne around the, for example, the use of toxics, air, like fire gas and whatnot, what we saw from the George Floyd. I think that's something that we want to explore again, and just know that we are looking at different, like
everyone. My response was to someone who wanted to know how they can get involved. There's a lot of different groups. There's the Northside Rapid Response, where people share in terms of like what's happening in real time. So I encourage assistant in terms of people delivering food. So please get plugged in those as well. Some of the churches are taking in food in terms of like, where they're doing deliveries and stuff. So there's a lot of ways that that we can all help and assist our neighbors. In terms of the schools, all help one another at this moment.
And let me go to Viviana. Viviana, are you still there? Viviana, if you're still there, can you talk about some of the stuff, some of the things that we've been doing around uh, um, DOPAs, power of attorneys, all the work that we've been doing?
Yes. So yeah, we started preparing for this as soon as the current administration was elected into office. So we have been distributing DOPA since early February. Situation is. The DOPA form allows them to do everyday things like register them for school, pick them up from school, take them to doctor appointments, things like that. So it is a valuable resource, and I can put it in the chat. The food delivery refer people to DHH because they deliver thousands of boxes about 3 times a week. If they send me another message saying, I haven't received my food, we are out of food, then I start making a list and then I shop for them either at anything else do you want me to touch on, Senator?
So just quickly, if you put your information in the chat, because there was a question, can churches get DOPAs or whatever that document is that you referred to? Because I was talking to them when I was at churches the other day about. There has to be authority for that identified caretaker to be able to travel with the child to reunite the family. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. So it really depends on, and that's what we also have in the letter is to make sure the family makes a plan. The family decides if the aunt is going to stay with them, or if they're going to go back.
All right. So let me go to a couple questions and then we'll answer those questions because I still need to make sure that Paul is able to talk more about know your rights. He's been talking.
For sure. Yeah. So ID is a tricky one because legally in the state of Minnesota, you do not have to present your ID to law enforcement. So you are being, a crime, not an immigration infraction, a crime.
NIMCO in particular called out some of the grassroots efforts that are going on to protect our neighbors. There's also a grassroots effort that has been particularly effective right now to identify ICE vehicles and track their locations, even despite all of the illegal activity around switching license plates. And I know that license uninformed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to Constant. Do you have a question? If you want to make a comment, we hope that you'll hold on to that towards the end, because we want to make sure that if people have specific questions of the guest and others, we want to make sure that we get that information. But that was good, Luke, to also include some.
A lot of conversation in the community about non-responsiveness to 911 calls when people are threatened with violence or kidnapping from ICE. I would like the commissioner to talk about what, if any, guidance 911 operators have been given in Minneapolis for how to deal with these calls.
Thank you. Are willing to check into that?
And if not, I've got it noted and wrote down. We can follow up with answers.
Senator, this is
It-
Councilmember Vita
Yes.
here. Thank you for the question, Constance. I think the question was, are 911 operators being trained? Person calls in and said, I just been threatened by ICE.
Yes, like they're trying to take me
okay.
or somebody on my block, or threatening me with a tear gas canister, that sort of thing.
Yes, okay, I understand. I just wanted to make sure I understood the question. Yes, there has been training about the calls that are coming in from community. So they are being deployed when they can come to those calls, but it's unfortunate, but they are not making it to every single one of those calls.
And it sounds like to me that we'll make sure that we write this down and remind the city as well as if they would.
This week, I was in 911 going to talk to some of the 911 operators about the calls that are coming in. And what you're saying is correct. They are getting those kind of calls, and they're really trying to navigate through those calls and get out to emergencies. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of other things going on in our community.
Howard, you're up.
Good morning. We are the North Star. We're Minneapolis strong. We're going to get through this. We got the muscle memory. My observation from Annunciation, from 34th in Portland, 24th in Lindale, is that we need more psychological first aid. Responsive and de-escalate.
Thank you, Howard. I will say that I was there on Wednesday night. I did see some of the community violence interrupters. Not everyone. I did see a Mother's Love was there. I did see some others, but it was a chaotic situation. Go now to Paul Sullivan, who can now do his presentation, answer some of the questions that have been put forward, because his presentation is one where we've been getting a lot of questions asked around identification. What are your rights? Can you blow a whistle? Can you follow ID?
Can everybody see my screen?
We can see a blank screen. Oh, there it is now. Know your rights.
Yeah.
There it is.
And we will share
Perfect.
this just before people start asking. We will share this afterwards. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So, it's a fairly extensive presentation. With them in those instances, ways you can be prepared both for yourself and for your loved ones. Oops, excuse me. And then ways you can help defend your community. And lastly, I'm going to give you all ways that you can help prepare with your loved ones at home. So, in general, when we're talking Number 3, I don't consent to a search. And number 4, I want to speak to an attorney. No matter what ICE asks you, these are the things that you can say safely and legally without incriminating yourself. You do not have to answer any questions that they ask you. You don't have to do anything until you're being detained. Not have to let them in. And that is the same for your vehicle as well. You do not have to let them in. So, like I said, you always have the right to remain silent. You never have to discuss your immigration status or citizenship status with ICE. So if they come up and ask you about it, you do not have to tell them. If you want to stop you and ask for, your documents. If you are a non-citizen, you are supposed to carry documentation with you and present it upon request to immigration officers. However, it does require for them to have a reasonable suspicion of a crime or a violation of immigration law to ask you. I'm not an attorney, and this isn't legal advice or personal advice. But in general, I would say is you do not volunteer that information. You have the documentation to back it up in case you are unlawfully arrested. That is probably the best way to go about that right now. Again, you don't have to answer any questions without an attorney. Which is get people to either sign away their right to be in the country, essentially, or sign away their rights at trial if you're a citizen that's been arrested. There are a few exceptions that are worth noting. If you're arrested by ICE, you do have the right to an attorney, but because they generally cover civil law, they do not have to provide you with one. On the western fringes of Wisconsin. In those states, you do. If an immigration agent asks to search you, you always have the right to say no. However, they may say, we suspect you have a weapon and pat you down anyway. It's important that you still say, I do not consent to your search, because that's how it's legible to the law. So yeah, those are narrowly tailored. They're going to have a name, a date, an address, a time. It has to have it signed by a judge within 14 days of its use. However, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, ICE is coming with administrative warrants or ICE warrants. Says it is United States District Court, and it is signed by a judge. Judge signature down there. It's been filled out. However, most of the time, this is what they have, if they have anything, which is, at the top, you can see very clearly it is not issued by a court. And down at the bottom, there is in general, they're going to come to your house, they're going to knock on your door, they're going to say, let us in, we're police, ICE, whatever. First thing, make sure that you identify that they are ICE. A lot of the time they try to lie and say they're police. They say they're, we've seen them say that they're like maintenance even. Just make sure that they're showing some form of identification, One big example of that is if you open the door at all, in general, they're going to say later, oh, they opened the door for me. That was consent. They let me in. So you don't open the door whatsoever. You're not even with the chain on. Tell agents, I do not consent to your entry. If they have a warrant signed by a judge or if they claim that, signed by a judge warrant. We recommend that it's better to have the person leave the house that they're looking for rather than have them come in, because there might be children, there might be elders in there that don't know their rights. And a lot of the time they go in and then they arrest everybody because they're all, oh, this is now we have other people that we're looking for. present some form of like driver's license, proof of insurance, things like that. I would say still do not open that car door. If you need to crack down the window for them to see something, you can do that. But again, do not open it. Do not give them that entry. If officers ask to search your car, drive away. If they say no, you go straight back to asserting those rights. Passengers in the car are more protected than the driver insofar that they don't have to present any sort of like driver's license, proof of insurance, anything. They don't have to answer any questions by law enforcement. They do not have to show any documents or identification. Or permission from your employer to enter a workplace. That's where it gets tricky because you don't have control over what your employer does or doesn't do. So if they do get into your workplace, it's the same deal. Am I free to go? If they say no, I want to remain silent. If they say yes, just walk away. Don't resist, don't run. They like to cause a lot of as long as you're not obstructing them. No matter what they tell you, they will try to tell you that you can't. You can. It's a very clear First Amendment right. Very important for workplaces. Often they like to barge in and tell people to line up, you know, documented and citizens on one side, undocumented on the other side. To remain silent. When it comes to employers' rights with ICE, employers are really very frontline when it comes to making sure that your employees stay safe. They have what's called a reasonable expectation of privacy in their businesses. It's a kind of mushy term. Essentially, what that does mean is that employers get to be the ones that say, hey, this is a hospital or like the, you know, a coffee shop at the front where people are sitting. ICE can get in there because it's public. However, places that are private and marked as private are places that they do need a judicial warrant to get into. So it's very important that you mark as soon as possible, write down every detail. I know that can be hard. As somebody who has been arrested unlawfully, it's very hard to go through that trauma in the moment, but it's really important that you write down as much as you can, especially if you assert your rights out loud. Make sure that a non-citizen, make sure you're asking your attorney how a criminal conviction or plea can affect your immigration status. Not all attorneys are fully up in the know when it comes to immigration law, so make sure they're aware of that. If you have a green card, and in general, if you have documentation, you do need to carry it with you at all times. It's important that you have a file showing that. That can be like bills, receipts, anything like that. because if you've been in the United States for less than 2 years, you're subject to what's called expedited removal, which is a much quicker and lower bar for due process when it comes to leaving. Um, make sure your family has the following information in case you're vulnerable to deportation: your legal name, your A number, if you have one, and your date of birth, attorney contact information if you have union and representative or just employer contact info. Make sure you have contact information for any person on DOPAs, which again is going to get covered later and will also be in the slides for people to look at later. Powers of attorney, again, same deal. Now, community defense. If you are a citizen, and especially if you are a citizen who is white or white passing, this is a moment where it is incredibly important that you step up. Also be in the slides for people to look at later. Powers of attorney, again, same deal. Now, community defense. If you are a citizen, and especially if you are a citizen who is white or white passing, this is a moment where it is incredibly important that you step up. Will also be in the slides for people to look at later. Powers of attorney, again, same deal. Now, community defense. If you are a citizen, and especially if you are a citizen who is white or white passing, this is a moment where it is incredibly important that you step up.